My son abandoned me at a gas station on Father's Day. I was holding 2 coffees when his truck disappeared. One for me, one for my son. In my jacket pocket was the Father's Day card my granddaughter drew by hand. It showed me standing beside an old truck, smiling like I still mattered. Then my phone buzzed. "Find a ride home," my son texted. "I have a business to save." I stood there beside the fuel pumps, with hot coffee turning cold in my hands, while strangers walked past pretending not to notice an old man being left behind. I did not yell. Men my age learn that yelling only helps cruel people call you difficult. Welcome to Final Act Revenge. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there. And if you are watching late tonight, please take care of your health, drink some water, and stay with me. Back then, my son thought he had only left me at a gas station. He had forgotten every machine he owned still answered to my paperwork. My name is Callum Anderson. I was 67 years old when my son decided I was easier to leave behind than to respect. I am Canadian-American, born into a family that carried Ontario manners into Michigan winters. My father believed a man should keep his boots dry, his tools clean, and his promises shorter than his memory. I grew up around trucks, salt, diesel smoke, and cold mornings when machines did not care how tired you were. For most of my working life, I was a fleet maintenance supervisor and diesel equipment inspector. That sounds plain. It was not. I knew trucks by their engine notes. I knew when a trailer had been overloaded by the way the tires sat. I could read a maintenance log and tell whether a man had done the work or only written down that he had. Machines are honest if you listen long enough. Paperwork is the same way. My wife, Lila, used to say I could hear a bad injector faster than I could hear a compliment. She was probably right. Lila worked as a community college adult education aide, and on Friday nights, she helped organize movie nights for seniors who lived alone or did not drive after dark. She believed nobody should be stranded. Not at a clinic, not in a parking lot, not outside a grocery store after sunset. She used to say, "Never leave a person waiting where you wouldn't want to be forgotten." I heard that sentence many times. I just never thought my own son would make me live it. Landon was not always cruel. That is the part people forget when they hear stories like mine. They want the villain to be easy. They want him born selfish, standing there with a smirk from the beginning. Life is rarely that neat. My son worked hard when he started Anderson Shoreline Works. Dock repairs, driveway grading, snow removal, small excavation, lakeside property maintenance. He came home muddy, exhausted, sunburned, and proud. I understood that kind of pride. A man who builds something with his hands can start believing the dirt under his nails proves he owes no one anything. But Landon did owe someone. At first, he knew it. When he needed equipment, he came to me with estimates folded in a plastic folder. 2 pickups, a trailer, a skid steer, a compact excavator, commercial mower, fuel account, insurance rider. The loan came to $246,000. Harbor State Bank liked the business plan, but they liked my name better. So I co-signed. I also put in an old truck as trade-in value, reviewed the collateral list, helped write the maintenance schedule, and stayed listed as the contact for insurance and equipment verification. Landon hugged me outside the bank that day. He said, "Dad, someday this will all be mine." I told him, "Someday this business should be yours." That was my mistake, not the help. The word someday. A father says someday like a blessing. A desperate son can hear it like permission. For a while, Anderson Shoreline Works made me proud. Landon did real work. He fixed docks for widows who could not afford big contractors. He cleared snow from church lots before sunrise. He taught my granddaughter Molly how to sit in a parked truck and pretend she was inspecting the yard with me. Molly made me laugh in a way I had almost forgotten after Lila passed. She called my clipboard Grandpa's steering wheel. But then the business changed. Not overnight, little by little. Landon married Kira, and Kira had ideas. Premium lakefront brand, Better image, bigger clients, video packages, expansion. She did not hate work. She hated looking small. Then her brother, Jace Rains, started hanging around the yard. He could run equipment, I will give him that. But he treated machines like toys that happened to have loan numbers attached. I warned Landon once. Equipment does not care about confidence, I told him. It cares about maintenance, insurance, and who is allowed to touch the keys. He laughed. Not meanly then, but too easily. Dad, you worry like the bank still owns my shadow. I should have answered differently. I should have said, no, son, the bank owns the machines until the paperwork says otherwise. But I let it pass because I loved him. And love, when mixed with pride, can make an old man call silence patience. By the time Father's Day came, Landon had stopped asking for advice and started asking for signatures. And I had not yet understood the difference. I thought I had helped my son buy machines. I did not realize I had also taught him to believe the man behind the loan could be left behind like an empty coffee cup. Tina Weller, the cashier at North Shore Fuel and Coffee, was the first person who looked at me like I was not invisible. She came out from behind the counter after I had been standing near the window too long, holding those 2 coffees like my hands had forgotten what to do without a son to give one to. Sir, she said gently, do you need to call someone? I almost said no. Pride is a stubborn little animal. Even when it is bleeding, it still wants to stand up straight. But my phone was down to 8%, and the nearest ride home was more than 30 miles away. So I nodded. Tina pointed to a stool near the lottery machine. You can sit there and charge your phone. Nobody should be left on Father's Day holding 2 coffees. That sentence did something to me. Not because it was dramatic, because it was decent. Sometimes a stranger's kindness hurts more than family's cruelty, because it proves what should have been easy all along. I sat by the window and set both coffees on the little counter. One had my name written on it in black marker. The other had Landon's. His sat untouched, cooling. I called him once. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Then my phone buzzed. For 1 second, I thought he had changed his mind. But it was Molly, my granddaughter. Grandpa, Dad said you wanted to go home early. Is that true? I stared at the message until the words blurred a little. There are lies people tell to protect children. And there are lies people tell because children make them ashamed. This was the second kind. I typed slowly. No, sweetheart. I'm okay. I'll explain later. Then I erased that. It sounded too heavy for a 12-year-old. I sent only, I love you, Molly. She answered with a heart and then a photo. That photo changed everything. Landon stood beside the main truck at a lakefront property, smiling for the camera like Father's Day had become a business brochure. Kira stood beside him, holding a phone on a little stabilizer, her hair perfect, her sunglasses pushed on top of her head. Jace Rains leaned against the trailer like he had earned a place in the family story. Behind them was a temporary sign. Anderson Shoreline works 3 generations of Anderson grit. 3 generations. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I was sitting at a gas station with a dead phone, 2 cold coffees, and a card in my pocket, drawn by the only generation still honest enough to miss me. I was not in the picture. No old fleet man. No father who co-signed the loan. No grandfather whose truck helped start the business. Just Landon, Kira, Jace, and the machines. Kira had written under the photo, "Building legacy on Father's Day." Legacy. That word looked expensive when she used it. Lila used to say legacy was what people remembered when no camera was pointed at you. Kira used it like a filter. I zoomed in, not on Landon's smile, not on the sign, on the equipment. Habit took over before emotion could stop it. The trailer behind them was TR-14. I knew that trailer. Tandem axle, reinforced ramp, dent above the left fender from the winter. Landon backed it too close to a salt pile. It was listed in the collateral schedule for the Harbor State loan, and it was not supposed to be at that lakefront property. I knew the week's job rotation because I still received equipment summaries. TR-14 was supposed to be idle until Monday inspection. The dock repair site in Molly's photo did not require that trailer, and the skid steer attachment on it looked wrong for shoreline grading. Mud on the tire sidewall caught my eye. Dark clay, not lake sand. That trailer had been somewhere else first. South Road work, maybe. Or one of those cash side jobs Jace liked to pretend nobody noticed. I felt the old inspector inside me wake up, slowly, quietly. The way a man reaches for a flashlight in a dark yard because something does not sound right. Tina came back over. "Everything all right?" I looked at the photo, then at Landon's untouched coffee. "No," I said, "but I know where to start looking." She did not ask what that meant. Good people do not always need the whole story to understand that something has gone wrong. I saved the photo. Then I took a picture of the 2 coffees, the receipt, and Molly's card on the counter. Not for revenge, not yet. For the record. Because when men like my son rewrite a day, you need objects that refuse to lie. By the time my ride arrived, the coffee was cold enough that the cups had stopped steaming. I carried Molly's card carefully in my jacket pocket. The front showed me standing beside an old truck. Under it, in blue marker, she had written, "Grandpa always gets us home." I sat in the back seat of that ride, watching North Shore fuel and coffee disappear through the rear window. And I kept thinking about the trailer, not the text, not the abandoned coffee, the trailer. I zoomed in on that photo, past my son's smile and the big words about family legacy, and saw the one thing nobody else would notice. The trailer behind him was not supposed to be there. When I got home, I did not call Landon. That may sound cold. It was not. It was discipline. A man can waste an entire afternoon demanding an apology from someone already busy defending himself. I had learned long ago that angry people tell stories. Paper tells sequences. So I started with the sequence. I set Molly's Father's Day card on the kitchen table. Beside it, I placed the gas station receipt Tina had handed me with a little crease in the corner. Then I opened the old metal drawer under my desk and took out the clipboard I had used for fleet inspections. The clip was still stiff. Good. Some things should not loosen with age. I printed Molly's photo and laid it flat under the desk lamp. Landon smiling. Kira polished. Jace leaning like he belonged. The sign about 3 generations of grit. And behind them, TR-14. I circled the trailer number with a red pencil. Then I pulled up the equipment schedule. Sunday, TR-14 idle. Monday, inspection hold. Authorized operator, Landon Anderson only. Route note, yard to North Lake site pending. But the photo showed more than it should have. The trailer ramp had dried clay along the left hinge. Dark clay, not sand, not gravel dust. The kind you pick up along the south access roads where small cash grading jobs happen behind new builds. I knew that dirt. You do not spend decades around equipment without learning that mud has an address. I checked the fuel account next. Unit card 22 had been used at 6:42 that morning, not near the lakefront site, 21 miles south. Then again at 8:11, different pump, same card. I sat back slowly. Fuel card used like a teenager with a stolen arcade token. Lila would have told me not to be sarcastic in writing. I wrote it anyway. The mileage log came next. Truck A6 showed a clean route on paper. Yard to North Lake to yard. Simple. Too simple. Bad logs are rarely messy. Messy looks honest. Clean lies are the ones that scare me. The actual mileage did not match the expected route, not by a mile or two. By enough to carry a trailer somewhere it had no business being. I clicked into the insurance rider. Jace Rains was not listed as an authorized operator. That mattered. Not emotionally. Legally. If Jace had been moving collateral equipment for side work and something happened, Insurance could push back. The bank could question usage, and the loan could start smelling like risk. That was the word banks hate most. Risk. I opened the original collateral schedule. 2 pickups. TR-14 trailer, SS-3 skid steer, EX-2 compact excavator, commercial mower, fuel account tied to approved job routes. The list looked quiet. Lists always do. They do not show sweat, excuses, or fathers abandoned at fuel stops. But they do show responsibility. And responsibility still had my name beside it. My phone buzzed around then. Not Landon, Molly. "Grandpa, are you home?" I looked at the gas station receipt. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm home." "Did Dad make you mad?" Children ask simple questions that adults spend years making complicated. I typed, "I'm disappointed, not mad." Then I deleted it. Too heavy. I sent, "We'll talk soon." "I love you." She replied, "I love you too." I kept the card picture. I looked at the card on my table. The real one was still slightly bent from my jacket pocket. Her drawing showed me standing by an old truck, taller than I felt. Grandpa always gets us home. I touched the paper with one finger, then I went back to the logs. By late afternoon, I had built a timeline. 6:12 a.m., Landon picked me up. 6:42 a.m., fuel card used South Route. 7:18 a.m., Molly's card given to me in truck. 7:43 a.m., North Shore. Fuel and coffee receipt. 7:51 a.m., Landon left location without me. 8:11 a.m., second fuel card use off approved route. Later, photo at lakefront site with TR-14 visible. That was not a mistake. That was movement with a pattern. I had seen enough bad fleet reports to know when a man was using convenience as a cover. The question was not whether Landon had abandoned me. That part was already plain. The question was what he had been trying to get done while I stood at a gas station holding 2 coffees. I opened my email and found the message from Harbor State Bank. Equipment loan confirmation. Pending Monday review. Below it, another line. Collateral use verification required for expansion draw and refinance inquiry. Refinance. I read that word twice, then a third time. If Landon was trying to refinance the equipment loan, he was not just expanding. He might be trying to move me out of the paperwork altogether. The timing changed shape in my mind. Father's Day ride, gas station stop, business emergency, trailer off route, loan confirmation pending. Suddenly, the day no longer felt careless. It felt arranged. Maybe not from the start, maybe not with a villain's plan, but arranged enough by pressure, pride, and convenience that leaving me behind had become useful to him. I turned to a clean sheet on my clipboard and wrote, TR-14 observed off schedule, fuel variance, unauthorized operator concern, refinance inquiry pending, do not confirm until reviewed. Then I underlined the last word, reviewed. That was the word men like Landon hated, because review slows the machine. And when a man is running too fast toward a cliff, slowing him down feels like betrayal. I leaned back in my chair as evening settled over the house. The 2 cold coffees were gone now, but the receipt remained. So did Molly's card. So did the photo. And by the time I finished reading the fuel route, I was no longer looking at a son who left me at a gas station. I was looking at collateral moving off the map, and a bank that would soon ask me whether I was willing to pretend I had not seen it. The next morning, I woke before the sun had cleared the trees. Old fleet men do that. Your body remembers yard hours, even after retirement. Coffee before daylight. Boots by the door. Clipboard where your hand can find it. A quiet check of the weather, because machines may be made of steel, but weather still wins if you ignore it. I sat at my kitchen table with Molly's Father's Day card on one side and the Harbor State email on the other. Between them sat the gas station receipt. 3 pieces of paper, one from love, one from a bank, one from being left behind. At 7:12, my phone rang. Harbor State Bank, I answered before the second ring. Callum Anderson. A woman's voice came through, professional and careful. Mr. Anderson, this is Shelby Rowan with Harbor State Equipment Finance. I knew Shelby. She had handled the original Anderson Shoreline Works loan file. Smart woman, direct but never rude. The kind of banker who knew that farm equipment, construction machines, and family businesses all had one thing in common. They broke down faster when people lied about maintenance. Morning, Shelby. I wish this were a routine call. That makes two of us. She paused. That pause told me she already knew more than she wanted to say. Mr. Anderson, your son can call himself owner all he wants. The loan still calls you responsible. I looked at Molly's card. Grandpa always gets us home. Responsible. That word felt heavier than Father's Day. What triggered the call? I asked. Shelby did not waste time. Equipment loan confirmation is due before Monday review. There is also an expansion draw request tied to additional shoreline contracts and a refinance inquiry submitted last week. Refinance. There it was again. I picked up my pencil. Submitted by Landon? Submitted through Anderson Shoreline Works. Landon Anderson is primary applicant. Kira Anderson is listed as business communications contact. Of course she is, Shelby continued. There are also fuel account variances, a route mismatch connected to Unit TR-14, and an operator list issue. Our records do not show Jace Rains as an authorized operator under the insurance rider. I wrote Jace in block letters, then underlined it once. TR-14 was off schedule, I said. Another pause. You already noticed. I saw a photo. From the job site? From my granddaughter. Shelby's voice softened a little, but only a little. Good bankers do not lean too far into sympathy. They know paperwork still has to stand when feelings leave the room. She said, the bank needs your confirmation that collateral use remains within approved business purpose. I looked toward the window. A pair of robins hopped across my lawn, busy with their own small inspections. What happens if I do not confirm? Shelby answered carefully. If confirmation is withheld, Harbor State can trigger collateral review. Expansion draw will be held. Refinance cannot proceed. Fuel accounts may be restricted to verified active job routes. Insurance compliance may request updated operator verification. Additional equipment release would require clearance. That was a long sentence, but I heard the simple version. The machines could still exist. They just could not move freely on Landon's pride. Would scheduled customer jobs stop? I asked. Not necessarily. If Landon provides verified schedules, approved operators, and insurance documentation, legitimate work can continue. That mattered. I did not want to punish customers because my son had treated me like dead weight. I did not want some widow's dock repair delayed because Jace wanted side money, and Kira wanted a bigger brand video. This was not about smashing the business. It was about making the business tell the truth. Before I tell you what Shelby found in that equipment file, let me ask you something. If your own child left you at a gas station on Father's Day, then needed your signature to keep his machines running the next morning, would you still confirm the loan? Tell me in the comments, because I think many parents know what it feels like to be treated like a burden until the paperwork is due. Shelby lowered her voice. There is one more item. I set my pencil down. Go ahead. Landon asked whether you could be removed from the notification chain after refinance. The kitchen went very still. Not quiet. Still. Those are different. Quiet is absence of noise. Stillness is when the truth finally enters, and even the clock seems to wait. He asked that? Yes, sir. When? Last Thursday. Before Father's Day. Before the gas station. Before the 2 coffees. Before he left me standing there under a fuel pump canopy like a problem he had solved. I leaned back in my chair. Suddenly the shape of the weekend changed. The ride, the business call, the hurry, the refusal to answer, the text. Find a ride home. I have a business to save. Maybe Landon had not planned every piece of it. People rarely plan cruelty as cleanly as stories make it sound. But pressure has a way of arranging selfish choices into something that looks very much like a plan. Shelby said, "Mr. Anderson, I need to be clear. Removing you after refinance would require proper payoff, release, and replacement collateral structure. It is not automatic." "I know. I assumed you did." That almost made me smile, a tired smile. "Shelby, is there a collateral use verification condition in the file?" "There is." "My initials on it?" "Yes." "Landon's?" "Yes." "Then do not process confirmation until I review the complete collateral packet. I can mark it pending owner contact review." I corrected her gently. "Not owner." Another pause. "Collateral control contact," she said. "That's the phrase." I heard keys clicking on her end. Those little clicks sounded louder than the truck leaving me at the station, because the truck had only taken my ride. This was about to take away Landon's ability to pretend I was irrelevant. Shelby said, "I'll prepare the file. You should know, once marked pending, Landon will receive notice that expansion and refinance activity are paused." "I understand." "He may call you." "He already knows how." My voice came out flatter than I intended. Shelby did not comment. Professional mercy. I appreciated it. After we hung up, I opened the old clipboard and wrote, 7:31 a.m. Shelby Rowan confirmed refinance inquiry, route variance, unauthorized operator concern, and request to remove Callum from notification chain. Then I added, "Do not confuse being left behind with being released." I stared at that sentence. That was the heart of it, really. Landon had left me behind. But he had not released me from risk. He still wanted my name holding up the loan, my experience calming the bank, my history making the machines look safer on paper, my silence making his story easier to sell. I looked at Lila's old photo on the shelf by the hallway. She would have hated the gas station part most. Not the loan, not the paperwork. That woman could forgive almost anything except abandoning someone who had no ride. I could hear her voice as clearly as if she were standing by the coffee pot. "If someone depends on you for the ride, don't make them beg for the map." I folded Molly's card carefully and placed it inside the clipboard. Not away. Inside. Where evidence belongs when love is part of the case. Then my phone buzzed again. Landon. This time, I did not answer. Not yet. Because Shelby did not have to say the rest out loud. My son had not just left me at a gas station. He had already started asking the bank how to leave me out of the business too. Landon called 3 times before I answered. That told me the bank had done its job. A son who leaves his father at a gas station can ignore a phone easily enough. A son waiting on loan confirmation suddenly remembers how to keep calling. I let the 3rd call ring twice. Then I picked up. "Callum Anderson." For a moment, he said nothing. That hurt too. Not because I wanted him to be afraid, because I still waited for the first words to be human. "Dad, I'm sorry. Dad, are you home? Dad, I should not have left you there." Instead, he said, "Did Harbor State call you?" There it was. The loan before the father, again. I looked at Molly's card tucked inside my clipboard. "You remembered the bank before you remembered the man you left behind." He blew out a sharp breath. "Dad, don't start like that." "Like what?" "Like I abandoned you in the wilderness. It was a gas station. You had a phone." "And 2 coffees?" Silence. That one landed. Good. Some truths are small enough to fit in a cup and heavy enough to bend a room. Landon spoke again, softer this time, but not softer in the way an apology sounds. Softer in the way a salesman lowers his voice before the ask. "We had a situation. The lakefront client was moving up the meeting. Kira had the whole media package ready. I couldn't miss it." "So you left me." "I thought you'd understand." "No," I said. "You thought I'd absorb it." He went quiet again. Then Kira's voice entered from somewhere behind him. Put him on speaker, Landon. Of course. When a man cannot make his excuse stand, he brings in someone who helped build it. Landon said, Kira's here. I heard. Her voice came through smooth and bright, like she was greeting a client at an open house. Callum, I know Father's Day got emotional, but we cannot let one bad moment derail a major expansion. One bad moment. That was what they called it now. Not abandonment, not humiliation. A moment. I looked at the gas station receipt on the table. One bad moment still has an address, I said. Kira paused. Excuse me? North Shore Fuel and Coffee, Pump 4, 2 coffees, 1 receipt, 1 witness. That ended her bright tone. Landon cut in quickly. Dad, this is not about the gas station anymore. You're right, he sounded relieved. Then I said, it's about why Harbor State thinks I should confirm equipment use while TR-14 is off route and Jace is not on the operator list. The line went quiet. Not confused quiet, caught quiet. Kira recovered first. Jace helps when we're short. That's normal in family businesses. Insurance companies do not insure family helping out. They insure authorized operators. She made a small, frustrated sound. This is exactly what I mean. Everything with you becomes a form. No, I said. Everything with you becomes a story until a form asks for the truth. Landon's voice sharpened. We're trying to grow, Dad. This is the season. Lakefront clients don't wait because you're upset. I am not upset about growth. Then confirm the loan review. No. The word came out calmer than I expected. Maybe because the decision had already been sitting inside me, waiting for my mouth to catch up. Landon said, You're serious? Yes. Dad, if that expansion draw freezes, we lose equipment access. We lose the client schedule. We lose momentum. You may lose misuse. That is not fair. Fair was not leaving me with 2 coffees and a dying phone. Kira jumped in again. Callum, this company is finally becoming what it was meant to be. Premium shoreline work. Better contracts. Better visibility. We cannot keep letting old paperwork slow down every opportunity. I stared out the window at my quiet driveway. Old paperwork. That phrase told me everything about how she saw me. Not as Callum. Not as Landon's father. Not as the man whose trade-in, credit, maintenance schedule, and signature helped put machines in that yard. Old paperwork. I asked, old paperwork or old father? Nobody answered. That was answer enough. Then Landon said the line I will never forget. You're not part of the business anymore, Dad. You're just on the paperwork. I closed my eyes for 1 second. There are insults that yell. And there are insults that file themselves neatly into your memory. That one did both. When I opened my eyes, I looked at the equipment folder on the table. Then read the paperwork before you call me useless. He said nothing, so I continued. You want my confirmation because the bank still requires it. You want my name because the refinance still needs it. You want my silence because explaining the truth slows you down. But somehow, I'm not part of the business. Landon's voice dropped. You're twisting this. No, I said. I'm finally reading it straight. Before he could answer, I heard another voice in the background. Male, younger, careless. Tell the old man the trailer's fine. I brought it back, didn't I? Jace Rains. I sat straighter. There are voices that make a mechanic check the brake lines twice. Jace was one of them. Landon hissed, Jace, not now. But Jace was close enough to the phone. What? He's worried about TR-14? Relax. That thing sits half the week anyway. I wrote the words down immediately. TR-14, used by Jace. Admitted. Kira said sharply, Jace, stop talking. Too late. Men like Jace do not understand that paperwork has ears when an old inspector is holding a pencil. I asked, Where did you take the trailer? Nobody answered, so I asked again. Where did you take the trailer? Landon said, It was a quick equipment transfer. Approved job? Silence. Authorized operator? Silence again. That second silence was worse, because it held the shape of the truth. I said, Landon, do you understand what happens if equipment listed as collateral is used off-schedule by an unauthorized operator while a refinance request is pending? He snapped. Do you understand what happens if you choke my business over technicalities? Technicalities. A word desperate men use for the rules they already broke. I looked at Molly's card again. Grandpa always gets us home. I wondered what she would think if she knew her father had left me behind and still expected me to help move every machine forward. My voice stayed quiet. You still have time to tell Shelby the truth. Landon almost laughed. Shelby? You're talking to the bank like this is some formal investigation? It is becoming one. You're making it one. No, I said. Jace helped. That got him. I heard movement. Maybe Landon walking away, maybe Kira grabbing the phone. Then Landon came back, lower now. Dad, listen to me. We need that refinance. After it closes, everything gets cleaner. We can restructure. We can get you out of the paperwork if that's what you want. There it was. Get me out. Not protect me. Not release me properly. Get me out. The same way he got me out of the truck at North Shore Fuel and Coffee. For a moment, all I heard was the pump canopy, the cold coffee lids, Tina's voice saying nobody should be left on Father's Day holding 2 coffees. I said, you do not get to abandon a man and then call it a release. He went quiet. Finally. Truly quiet. I ended the call before he could shape fear into another excuse. Then I opened the clipboard and wrote, 8:46 a.m. Landon requested confirmation. Kira called Collateral Control's old paperwork. Jace admitted TR-14 use. Refinance intended to remove Callum after closing. I stopped after that last sentence. Remove Callum. Those 2 words sat there like a label on a box somebody wanted gone. I thought about Lila then. How she used to say that when people rush you, they are usually trying to get past the part where you notice what they are doing. I noticed now. When Jace laughed about using the trailer, I stopped hearing careless family excuses. I started hearing the sound every old mechanic knows too well, a machine being pushed past the line before it breaks. I did not sleep much that night. Not because of anger. Anger burns hot and fast. By my age, you learn it cannot heat a whole life. What kept me awake was something colder. Clarity. There is a moment in every inspection when the machine stops pretending. You hear it in the idle. A vibration slightly wrong. A belt too loose. A sound that says this thing has been pushed harder than the paperwork admits. That was what my son sounded like now. Pushed too hard. Running too fast. And hoping the old man behind the loan would stay quiet long enough for the paperwork to catch up later. At 6 the next morning, I drove to the storage unit behind my garage and unlocked the gray filing cabinet Lila used to joke could survive a tornado. Your files will outlive us both, she once told me. Back then, I laughed. That morning, I did not. I pulled out the original Harbor State loan binder, not copies, originals. The thick blue folder still smelled faintly like diesel and paper dust. Inside were signatures, inspection schedules, collateral photographs, insurance riders, maintenance intervals, title references, fuel account agreements, and one document I had not thought about in over 2 years, collateral use verification condition. I sat down slowly. There it was, page 14, my initials beside every section. Landon's signature at the bottom. Harbor State required collateral verification when refinance requests altered liability structure, when equipment use exceeded approved operational scope, when unauthorized operators appeared, when fuel account variance exceeded threshold, when insurance exposure changed materially, or when expansion draws increased risk category. The bank had not trusted a young business owner alone. It had trusted me. My experience, my inspection history, my maintenance oversight, my old fleet discipline. And suddenly, I understood something ugly. Landon had spent months acting like I was outdated while still using my reputation to calm the bank. That realization hurt worse than the gas station, because abandonment lasts a day. Being quietly used can last years. I turned another page. There it was again. Collateral control. Contact, Callum Anderson. Not symbolic, not honorary, operational. I kept reading. Harbor State retained the right to freeze expansion disbursement, require operator verification, restrict fuel account activity, pause refinance review, inspect collateral equipment, review route compliance, and request updated maintenance certification, all triggered by withheld confirmation. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. Landon really had not read what he signed, or worse, he had read it and convinced himself I would never use it. My phone buzzed again. Kira this time. I almost ignored it. Almost. Then I answered. Callum. Her voice sounded thinner than before. Still polished, but stretched now, like someone smiling through a dentist appointment. Hi, I think we need to calm this situation down. Situation. Everybody likes soft words when hard truths arrive. You mean the loan review? I mean the misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding at North Shore Fuel and Coffee. A pause. Then she changed direction quickly. The bank notified us this morning that the refinance review is pending collateral verification. Correct. Landon says you're refusing confirmation. I am reviewing the file. That could seriously damage the company. No, I said. Misuse damages the company. Review exposes it. I heard movement behind her. Drawers opening, papers sliding. Stress sounds different in business people. They stop breathing fully. Everything becomes shorter, faster. Kira lowered her voice. You know what this business means to him. I looked down at the binder. He used to know what family meant to me. That's unfair. No. Leaving your father at a gas station while filming a legacy video is unfair. She exhaled sharply. Callum, you are turning one emotional day into a financial threat. No, I said quietly. You turned a financial structure into a personal convenience. Silence. Then she made the mistake I think she still regrets. You're acting like the business belongs to you. I rested one hand on the binder. No, I'm acting like the liability still does. That shut her up, because there is no motivational speech strong enough to beat signed liability paperwork. A minute later, another voice entered the call. Jace, of course. Man, this is crazy, he said. You're freezing all this because I borrowed a trailer for a few hours? Borrowed? Interesting word. You borrowed collateral equipment without authorization, I corrected. He laughed lightly. See? That's exactly why Landon says you think like a bank. No, I said. Banks think like banks. I think like a mechanic who knows machines stop moving when people start lying about where they went. Jace muttered something under his breath. Kira snapped at him to stop talking. Too late again. Men like Jace always believe confidence is stronger than documentation. They mistake noise for protection. I asked calmly, what job did you use TR-14 for? A side grading run. Approved under Anderson Shoreline? No, but paid cash? He stopped. There it was. Another silence shaped exactly like truth. Kira jumped in fast. This has nothing to do with the core business. It has everything to do with the loan. I could almost hear her realizing that every sentence was becoming evidence. Then Landon got on the phone. No greeting, no apology, just breathing first. That told me enough. Dad, he said finally, what do you want? That question hit me harder than yelling would have, because sons ask that question when they have already decided fathers are obstacles, not people. Obstacles, I answered honestly. I wanted Father's Day with my son. Another silence. This one heavier. Then he said quietly, "I'm trying to keep this company alive." I closed my eyes. For 1 second, I heard the younger version of him again. Muddy boots, exhausted grin. Pride, earned honestly. That almost broke me. Almost. Then I remembered standing beside Pump 4 while strangers pretended not to notice an old man left behind. "You're trying to grow too fast," I said. "We finally have momentum. You have exposure. We have opportunity. You have liability. We have clients waiting. You have unauthorized equipment movement, route variance, insurance risk, and a refinance request trying to remove the man still holding the bank's trust." His breathing changed after that. Slower, careful now, like he was finally realizing the old mechanic understood the whole engine. "Dad," he said, "once the refinance closes, everything gets cleaner." Cleaner. That word bothered me. People who say cleaner usually mean easier to hide. I opened the binder again and read directly from the document. Collateral control contact retains verification authority during refinance, expansion review, fuel variance review, and operational risk escalation. Landon did not answer, so I continued. "You thought I was just a cosigner." "No. Yes," I said. "You did." Kira whispered something in the background, probably asking if Harbor State could bypass me. They could not. Not without payoff restructuring, replacement collateral, updated insurance approval, and independent financing strong enough to replace the stability my name still gave them. Landon finally said it. "We didn't think you'd ever use it." There are sentences that end relationships more honestly than screaming. That was one of them. Not, "We didn't know." Not, "We're sorry. We didn't think you'd ever use it," meaning they knew exactly what I was. They just thought love would keep me passive. I stood up and walked toward the garage window. My old truck sat outside under soft morning light, quiet and dependable. Unlike people, machines never resent the hands that keep them running. "Landon," I said softly, "do you know why Harbor State trusted me?" No answer. Because I spent 40 years refusing to sign off on things that were unsafe just because somebody wanted speed instead of truth. He sounded tired now. "So what happens next?" I looked at the binder one more time, then at Molly's card tucked inside it. "Grandpa always gets us home," I answered carefully. "That depends on whether you want a father or just the paperwork." And for the first time since Father's Day, my son had no idea which answer would save him. I waited 2 days before driving to the equipment yard. Not because I was afraid, because I needed to know whether I was walking in as a father or as a man finally seeing the truth clearly. There is a difference. Fathers arrive hoping, inspectors arrive noticing. By the time I pulled into Anderson Shoreline Works, I was carrying both. The yard sat near the edge of the industrial strip outside town, where diesel smoke mixed with lake wind, and everybody's boots sounded heavier than they were. The front gate was open. Gravel shifted under my tires as I rolled in slowly. For years, that sound had felt like home. That morning, it felt like entering a place that had already started forgetting me. The new company sign stood taller than before. Anderson Shoreline Works Premium, Lakefront Solutions Premium. That word again. Landon used to care whether a dock held through winter ice. Now the sign looked like something designed to impress people who never touched mud. I parked beside the maintenance shed and stepped out. Nobody greeted me, not because they hated me, because the yard had become nervous. People looked away when they sensed trouble attached to payroll. I walked past the fuel station first. Card reader updated. New decals. Fleet numbers relabeled in Kira's cleaner branding style. But underneath the paint, I still recognized my old maintenance markings. Small things, tire pressure notes, inspection tags, drain schedule codes. My fingerprints were still all over the place, even if my son wanted the story rewritten. I heard voices near the office bay. Kira stood beside a camera tripod, holding a tablet while a young editor adjusted lighting. Landon was talking to a client near the skid steer line. Jace leaned against TR-14, drinking an energy drink like he owned the damn trailer. Then I saw the banner. 3 generations of Anderson grit, still hanging. Only now there was a second sign underneath it. Building the future of shoreline work. No picture of me anywhere. Not even an old founder photo. I watched quietly from beside the service bay. Kira noticed me first. Her smile appeared too fast. "Callum, we didn't know you were coming." That's usually when the truth is easiest to see. Her jaw tightened a little. Behind her, the editor quietly picked up equipment and walked away. Smart kid. Landon turned when he heard my voice. For a second, something honest crossed his face. Not guilt exactly. Fatigue. That almost hurt worse. Because tired people start believing cruelty is efficiency. "Dad," he said, walking over, "can we not do this here?" I looked around the yard. Interesting place to say that. Most of this started with me standing right here years ago. Jace muttered, "Here we go." I ignored him. That irritated him more. Landon rubbed the back of his neck. "We're busy." I noticed. I pointed toward the banner. 3 generations? Kira stepped in quickly. "It's branding, Callum. It's symbolic." "No," I said. "Molly is symbolic. Loans are contractual." That shut her up for a moment. Then I started walking the yard, slowly, like I used to during inspections. Truck A6 had fresh scrape marks near the rear hitch, fuel residue around the auxiliary can rack. TR-14's left tire wore heavier than the right. SS3 skid steer hours had increased faster than reported. Little things. Machines always confess eventually. Near the back fence sat the old service truck I had traded into the business years ago. The same truck Landon once washed by hand because he was proud just to borrow it. Now weeds pushed near the tires. A cracked coffee cup sat on the bumper. Forgotten. Like old tools usually are after new branding money arrives. Then I saw something that stopped me cold. Molly's Father's Day card. On the floorboard of truck A6, half under a muddy work glove. I walked toward the truck slowly. Very slowly. The driver's door was unlocked. Inside smelled like wet canvas, diesel, stale coffee, and fast food wrappers. And there it was. Bent, dirty, a boot print smeared across the corner where she had drawn my truck. "Grandpa always gets us home." Mud crossed through the word home. I picked the card up carefully with both hands. For a second, the whole yard disappeared. No trailers, no loan, no refinance. Just a little girl drawing her grandfather beside a truck because she still believed he was safe to count on. And somebody had thrown that onto the floor like trash. Behind me, Landon spoke quietly. "Molly left it in there." I turned around. "She gave it to me." He looked genuinely confused for 1 second. Then realization hit him. "She asked me where it went," I said. Kira folded her arms. "It's a card, Callum." That sentence changed something inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a lock turning, because people who can reduce love to paper eventually reduce people to paperwork too. I looked at the mud on the card, then at Landon. "She made this by hand." Nobody meant anything by it. "That's the problem," I said. "You stopped meaning things." Jace laughed under his breath again. "Man, this is getting emotional over nothing." I walked toward him, not aggressively, steadily, enough that his smile faded. "You think this is about a card?" He shrugged. "It's not exactly life or death." "No," I said. "It's legacy." He rolled his eyes. "Here comes the speech." I pointed toward TR-14. That trailer moved off approved route under an unauthorized operator during refinance review. He smirked again. "And someday, somebody like you hurt someone with equipment they were never cleared to touch. Then acts shocked when paperwork destroys everything faster than the accident did." That wiped the grin off him. Good. Across the yard, I noticed another setup near the office wall. Large photos mounted for Kira's media package. Landon operating machinery. Landon shaking hands with clients. Landon beside shoreline projects. One caption stopped me. Built from the ground up by a new generation. New generation. Not continued, not supported. Built from the ground up. I stared at that line a long time. Landon saw it too. Kira wrote that, he said, carefully. But he had approved it. That was the part that mattered. Lila used to say betrayal rarely arrives in one giant act. It arrives in tiny permissions people give themselves until they no longer recognize who they became. That yard was full of tiny permissions, ignoring the father, using the trailer, moving the loan, changing the story, throwing the card onto the truck floor. I folded Molly's card gently and slid it into my jacket pocket. Then Landon finally said the thing I think had been living inside him for months. You like acting important because your name is still attached to everything. I looked at him, really looked at him. The exhaustion, the pressure, the fear underneath the pride, and, behind all of it, shame. Not shame for leaving me at the gas station, shame that he still needed me. That was the real wound eating him alive. I answered softly. No, son, I liked when you still acted grateful. The yard went silent after that. Even Jace stopped moving. A cold wind rolled through the fence line, carrying the smell of rain and diesel across the gravel. Then my phone buzzed. Harbor State Bank, Shelby Rowan. I looked down at the screen while Landon watched my face carefully for the first time in days. And suddenly, I understood something with terrifying clarity. If I confirmed that loan now, I would be signing my own erasure. Shelby Rowan did not waste time. That was one thing I respected about her. Some people soften bad news until it becomes useless. Shelby believed clarity was kinder than delay. Mr. Anderson, she said, Harbor State completed preliminary collateral review this morning. I stepped away from the yard while Landon watched me from near the service bay. Rain clouds had started gathering above the fence line. Heavy ones. The kind that turn gravel dark before the first drop even falls. What did you find? I asked. Shelby lowered her voice. We confirmed unauthorized collateral movement tied to TR-14, unverified route mileage, and commercial use inconsistent with the pending refinance disclosures. Across the yard, Jace stopped pretending not to listen. Landon's jaw tightened immediately. Kira crossed her arms so tightly she looked cold. And the refinance? I asked. Temporarily frozen. That word traveled through me slowly. Frozen. Not destroyed, not canceled. Paused. Enough to stop momentum. Enough to force truth into daylight. Shelby continued. The expansion draw request is also suspended pending operator review and updated collateral verification. Landon started walking toward me then. Fast. Too fast. I held up one finger without looking at him. He stopped anyway. People forget something about old supervisors. We spent decades stopping moving machines with one hand signal. Shelby kept talking. There's another issue. Of course there was. There always is once paperwork finally gets nervous. We located 3 fuel transactions connected to unreported side work during collateral review week. I closed my eyes briefly. Jace. Again. Cash jobs? I asked. Yes. Logged under Anderson Shoreline? No, sir. That meant collateral equipment tied to Harbor State had been used for undeclared work while Landon attempted to refinance the loan structure and remove me from the notification chain. That was no longer sloppy. That was exposure. Who reported it? I asked, quietly. Shelby paused. Then she said, a competing contractor submitted photos after a bidding dispute. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because men like Jace always believe rules disappear until another greedy man notices profit leaking away. That is how most secrets die. Not from morality, from competition. Rain finally started falling then. Small drops at first. Dark spots across the gravel yard. Shelby continued. Harbor State needs a formal meeting tomorrow morning. You, Landon Anderson, and business communications contact, Kira Anderson. Will council attend? Yes. That surprised me. Banks do not invite legal oversight unless the machine is already smoking. I understand. Shelby's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, Mr. Anderson, this review would have happened eventually. You did not create the problem. No, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending not to see it. When the call ended, I stood still for a moment under the edge of the service awning while rain tapped across the metal roof. Then Landon came toward me. No yelling this time. That scared me more. Desperate men become quieter when they realize noise stopped working. What did she say? I looked at him carefully, really carefully. The son I raised was still in there somewhere. I could see flashes of him under the exhaustion, ego, and panic. But pressure had reshaped him into somebody who measured relationships by operational usefulness. And right now, I was becoming expensive. The refinance is frozen, I said. His face lost color instantly. Behind him, Kira whispered. Jace muttered a curse under his breath. Landon stared at me. For how long? Until Harbor State completes full collateral review. That could take weeks. Yes, we can't survive weeks. I believed him. That was the tragedy underneath all of it. Landon had grown too fast. Too many financed machines. Too many premium contracts. Too much image spending. Too much dependence on momentum instead of stability. And now the whole thing stood on wet ground. Kira walked toward me quickly. Callum, listen to me. If this pauses too long, payroll becomes a problem. Payroll. Interesting choice. Not apology, not family. Payroll. I answered honestly. You should have thought about payroll before using unauthorized operators on collateral equipment. Her voice sharpened. You're punishing employees because you're angry at your son. No, I said calmly. Your husband punished employees the moment he gambled company stability on shortcuts. That hit her harder than I expected. For the first time since Father's Day, Kira looked genuinely frightened. Not performative frightened, real frightened. Because she finally understood something. Banks do not care about branding videos. They care about exposure. Jace stepped forward then. This is insane, he snapped. It was one trailer. I turned toward him slowly. One trailer becomes one lawsuit. One insurance denial. One default trigger. One injured worker. One missing payment. One bank review. He rolled his eyes. You sound like you want the company dead. No, I said. I sound like the only person here who remembers what debt actually costs. Rain hit harder now. Cold drops bounced off the trailer ramps and puddled near the fuel station. Then Landon asked the question I knew was coming. What do you want me to do? That question always arrives late, usually after the damage already exists. I looked at him for a long moment, then I answered. Tell the truth tomorrow. Kira shook her head immediately. That's dangerous. I almost smiled. Dangerous. There was that word again. Truth becomes dangerous only after lies become expensive. Landon looked exhausted. What if they pull the equipment line completely? That depends on whether Harbor State still believes this business can operate honestly. Jace scoffed. This is unbelievable. I stepped closer to him. Not angry. Certain. No, I said quietly. What's unbelievable is abandoning your father at a gas station while trying to refinance the machines he still protects. That shut him up completely. For a moment, only rain filled the yard. Then Molly's voice suddenly broke through everything. Grandpa? We all turned. She stood near the gate holding an umbrella almost too large for her. Her backpack hung crooked over one shoulder. Water dripped from the edge of the umbrella onto her sneakers. My stomach dropped instantly. Molly, what are you doing here? She looked at Landon first. Not me. That mattered. Children look toward the person they think controls the emotional weather. "I heard Mom yelling on the phone," she said softly, "and Dad left before dinner again." Landon rubbed both hands over his face. "Molly, sweetheart, this isn't— Did you really leave Grandpa at a gas station?" The whole yard froze. Even the rain somehow sounded quieter. Landon looked trapped, because there are questions businessmen can dodge, but not when they come from a child holding an umbrella in the rain. He tried anyway. "It wasn't like that." Molly's eyes filled immediately. "But Grandpa had my card." Nobody answered. She looked at me then. "I looked for it in the truck." I reached slowly into my jacket pocket and handed it to her. The muddy crease still crossed the word home. She saw it instantly. Children notice damage faster than adults because they have not yet learned how to lie to themselves. Her face crumpled. "You threw it on the floor?" Landon stepped forward. "No, honey, listen." But she backed away from him. That hurt him. I saw it land. Good. Some pain arrives too late to stop the damage, but right on time to reveal it. Molly clutched the card against her chest. Rainwater rolled down the umbrella edge while she stared at her father like she no longer recognized the story he kept telling about himself. Then she whispered the sentence that broke the yard open completely. "Grandpa would never leave you somewhere." Landon looked like someone had hit him in the ribs, because deep down, he knew she was right. A long horn blast sounded from the road beyond the fence. One of the Harbor State inspection trucks rolled slowly past the yard entrance before disappearing around the corner. I watched Landon notice it. Then Kira noticed it. Then Jace. Fear moves differently once it becomes visible. And suddenly everybody standing in that yard understood the same thing at the same time. Tomorrow was no longer about family. Tomorrow was about survival. Harbor State Bank sat across from the Marina District in a brick building that smelled faintly of old carpet, printer toner, and coffee burned too long on a hot plate. I had been inside that building dozens of times over the years. Loan renewals, fleet reviews, insurance confirmations. The sort of meetings honest men attend hoping paperwork stays boring. This one was not boring. Rain still covered the streets when I arrived the next morning. The parking lot glistened dark gray under heavy clouds. I saw Landon's truck already parked near the side entrance. Kira's SUV beside it. Jace's pickup was missing. Smart. Cowards usually disappear right before signatures matter. I walked inside, carrying the blue collateral binder under one arm and Molly's card inside my jacket pocket. Shelby Rowan met me near the conference hallway. She looked tired. Bankers wear exhaustion differently than mechanics. Mechanics carry it in their shoulders. Bankers carry it around the eyes. "Morning, Mr. Anderson." "Morning, Shelby." She glanced toward the conference room. "They're already inside." "Are legal and compliance attending?" "Yes." That told me everything. This was no longer a family disagreement hidden behind paperwork. This was a liability event. Shelby lowered her voice slightly. "Landon requested emergency release review before you arrived." I almost smiled. Of course he did. Desperate men always search for exits after they realize the walls are real. "And?" "Council denied emergency modification pending collateral investigation." "Good. For once, rules were moving slower than panic." Shelby opened the conference room door. Landon sat near the center of the table, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight enough to whiten his knuckles. Kira sat beside him with a legal pad and tablet, trying to look composed. She almost succeeded. Almost. At the far end sat Harbor State Counsel, Denise Mercer, gray suit, silver glasses, expression sharp enough to cut cable wire. Beside her sat Compliance Officer Aaron Pike. Stacks of printed reports covered the table. Fuel logs, mileage summaries, insurance riders, collateral photos, route discrepancies, the whole machine laid open. Landon looked up when I entered. For a second, he almost looked relieved. That hurt me more than anger would have, because even now, Part of him still believed fathers arrived to absorb disaster. I sat down quietly across from him. No greeting, no performance, just rain ticking softly against the conference room windows. Denise Mercer began immediately. "Mr. Anderson, thank you for attending." She meant me, not Landon. That mattered. She folded her hands carefully. "Harbor State has completed preliminary review regarding Anderson Shoreline Works equipment financing, refinance application, and collateral management." No emotion in her voice. Banks remove emotion the way surgeons remove jewelry before operations. Aaron Pike slid several photographs across the table. TR-14 at an undeclared grading site. Jace operating equipment, fuel timestamps, unlogged mileage. One photo showed the trailer parked beside a cash job excavation behind a lakeside remodel. Landon looked physically sick seeing them spread out. Good. Truth should feel heavier once printed. Denise continued. Collateral equipment connected to active financing was used outside approved operational disclosure, while a refinance request sought structural modification and notification removal. Kira tried to interrupt. The business was under pressure and… Denise raised one hand. Not rude, worse, professional. Pressure does not void financing conditions. Silence. Then Aaron Pike spoke. 3 separate fuel variances occurred during collateral review week. An unauthorized operator used secured equipment while insurance documentation remained incomplete. He turned toward me. Mr. Anderson, did you authorize Jace Rains as operator? No. Did Harbor State receive operator amendment documentation? No. Aaron nodded once and wrote something down. Landon finally spoke. This wasn't fraud. Nobody answered immediately. That silence was brutal. Because nobody at the table cared whether he intended harm. Intent does not calm banks. Risk does. Denise opened the refinance packet. Mr. Anderson, she said to Landon, your refinance proposal included restructuring intended to remove Callum Anderson from notification and collateral verification authority. Landon swallowed hard. Yes. While active liability and operational risk remain tied to his original guarantees. Another silence. Then Denise asked the question that finally cracked the whole room open. Why was Mr. Anderson removed from operational visibility before risk stabilization? Landon looked toward Kira instinctively. That was the moment I realized something important. He no longer trusted himself to answer honestly. Kira leaned forward. We were modernizing the business structure. Callum prefers old oversight systems. We needed flexibility. Flexibility. Interesting word for hidden movement. Denise did not blink. Flexibility does not permit collateral misuse. Kira's face tightened. Then Aaron Pike slid another document across the table. Fuel restriction notice. Pending freeze authorization. Landon saw it and went pale. What does that mean? He asked quietly. Aaron answered calmly. Until collateral verification completes, Harbor State may restrict fuel account access to approved routes only. Kira looked stunned. That would cripple operations. No, I said softly. It would cripple shortcuts. Everybody looked at me then, even Denise. I opened the blue binder slowly. The old paperwork sounded loud in the quiet room, page by page. 40 years of my life suddenly sitting on polished conference wood. I placed Molly's card beside the binder. Nobody expected that. Not the bank, not Landon, not Kira. The muddy crease still crossed the word home. Denise glanced down at it briefly. I spoke carefully. My granddaughter made this on Father's Day. Landon shut his eyes immediately. I continued anyway. She handed it to me before my son left me at North Shore Fuel and Coffee, while rushing to a client video shoot connected to the same expansion Harbor State is reviewing today. Kira whispered sharply, Callum. No, I said. You wanted operational context. I looked directly at Denise. Landon believed removing me from visibility would make the refinance cleaner. But the business still depended on my liability history, my operational credibility, and my verification authority. Then I looked up at my son. You wanted the bank to trust my name while pretending I no longer mattered. The room stayed silent. Rain tapped harder against the windows. Landon looked exhausted now, not defensive anymore, just cornered by truth. Finally, he said quietly, I wasn't trying to erase you. I believed him, partially. That was the tragedy. Most betrayal does not begin with evil. It begins with convenience repeated too many times. Denise folded her hands again. Harbor State has reached preliminary resolution. Everyone sat straighter. Even Kira stopped touching her tablet. Denise continued. Expansion draw remains frozen pending 6-month compliance review. Landon stared at the table. Refinance restructuring is denied at this time. Kira's face lost color completely. Fuel account access will remain restricted to approved operational routes. Aaron Pike slid another form forward. Jace Rains is barred from collateral equipment operation unless formally insured and approved. Good, finally. Then Denise looked directly at me. Collateral Verification Authority remains with Callum Anderson under original financing conditions. There it was, out loud, public, official. My son inhaled sharply beside me, because now the truth sat in legal language where nobody could rewrite it later. Denise was not finished. Harbor State also recommends separation between Business Communications Authority and Operational Collateral Oversight. Kira blinked. What does that mean? It means, Denise said calmly, branding decisions will no longer substitute for operational compliance. That landed like a hammer. For the first time since Father's Day, Kira had no polished response ready. Then Landon surprised me, completely. He looked at me and asked quietly, Dad, did you ever plan to let me run this business without you? That question broke my heart more than the gas station, because underneath all the arrogance, debt, pressure, and stupidity, he was still just a son, terrified he had never truly become independent. I answered honestly, yes. The whole room went still. I was waiting until you learned the difference between growth and greed. Landon looked down at Molly's muddy card, and for the first time since this whole disaster began, he started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, like a man finally realizing the machine he pushed too hard had been his own family. 3 months later, Anderson Shoreline Works still existed. That surprised some people. Small towns love extremes. They expect family businesses to either collapse completely or rise from disaster with a smiling photo and a Facebook apology nobody believes. Real life is slower than that. Messier, too. Harbor State kept the refinance frozen through extended review. Fuel accounts stayed restricted to approved routes only. Every equipment movement required updated verification logs. Random inspections became normal. Insurance oversight tightened so hard even Jace stopped pretending rules were optional. He disappeared from the yard 2 weeks after the meeting. Not dramatically. No screaming. No final showdown. Men like Jace rarely stay once paperwork starts asking questions they cannot joke their way around. Kira remained involved in the business, but differently now. The branding videos slowed down. The expensive image campaigns disappeared almost overnight. Funny how quickly premium visibility becomes less important when banks start reviewing every invoice. She stopped calling me old paperwork after that meetings. She also stopped calling much at all. I think part of her still blamed me for what happened. Maybe she always will. But deep down, I suspect she finally understood something Lila tried to teach people for years. A family business cannot survive if everybody treats the oldest person in the room like removable equipment. Landon changed the most, not quickly. Pain that matters never changes people quickly. At first, he barely spoke during compliance review meetings. He looked tired all the time, smaller somehow, like somebody had finally unplugged the loud engine inside him and left him alone with the noise he had been outrunning for years. One afternoon, about a month after the bank meeting, he came to my house carrying a cardboard tray with 2 coffees. I noticed that immediately. 2 coffees, same as Father's Day. Only this time, he did not leave one behind. We sat on the porch while rain moved softly through the trees. He stared out at the yard for a long time before speaking. "I keep replaying that gas station in my head," he said quietly. I did not answer. Sometimes silence gives people room to tell the truth without defending themselves first. Finally, he said, "I think I stopped seeing you as my dad for a while." That hurt. Even after everything, hearing it out loud still hurt. But honesty often arrives carrying pain with it. He rubbed both hands together the way he used to after hard winter jobs. "You were always the guy who fixed things. Loans, trucks, problems, schedules. I think somewhere along the line, I started treating you like infrastructure. Infrastructure. Not father, not family. Just something holding weight quietly in the background." I looked at the coffee cup warming my hands. "When people only notice the bridge when it cracks," I said softly, "they forget somebody built it." He nodded slowly. Then came the part that mattered most. "Dad, I know you'll never trust me financially again." "No," I said honestly, "I won't." That answer stayed between us for several seconds. Cold, necessary. Bittersweet truths usually are. Landon swallowed hard but nodded anyway, because for once he was not arguing with reality. Harbor State eventually allowed limited operational restructuring, but only under strict oversight. My collateral verification authority stayed permanently attached to the original loan structure. Kira lost all communication control over financing review. Jace was permanently barred from operating collateral equipment connected to Harbor State. And I made one more decision, a final one. I removed Landon and Kira permanently from any future financial authority tied to my estate, retirement holdings, property transfers, or equipment assets. Not emotionally, legally, quietly, completely. People sometimes misunderstand forgiveness. Forgiveness is not reopening the vault after somebody proved they would empty it during a panic. Forgiveness can exist beside boundaries. Love can too. That is the lesson older people rarely hear until life forces it into them. You are allowed to love someone and still never hand them the keys again. Molly visited me more after that summer. Sometimes she brought homework, sometimes movies, sometimes nothing except conversation, and those little updates grandchildren think are ordinary, but older people secretly treasure forever. One evening, she asked me something while helping organize old inspection folders in the garage. "Grandpa, why didn't you just yell at Dad?" I smiled a little, because children think justice sounds loud. "Machines don't get repaired by screaming at them," I said. "You fix them by finding the real problem first." She thought about that seriously. Then she asked, "Was Dad the problem?" That question sat heavier than she realized. I shook my head slowly. No, pride was. And that was the truth. Pride built the business. Pride nearly destroyed the family. Lila used to say the most dangerous thing about pride is that it can disguise itself as independence for years before anybody notices the loneliness underneath it. I think Landon finally noticed. At least I hope he did. As for me, I still keep the gas station receipt inside the blue collateral binder. Not because I enjoy remembering the worst Father's Day of my life, because older people forget things too easily when love gets involved. We rewrite pain into excuses. We soften betrayal into misunderstanding. We tell ourselves family meant well while standing alone under a gas station canopy holding cold coffee. I do not hate my son. That is important to say. Hatred hardens people until they resemble the very thing that hurt them. But trust is different. Trust is a machine once pushed too far. Sometimes it runs again. Sometimes it never sounds the same. And sometimes the wisest thing an old mechanic can do is stop pretending the engine is healthy just because he misses the road. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and for listening to a story that was harder to tell than most people probably realize. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are right now. I always find comfort in seeing how far these stories travel, and how many people out there still understand dignity, family, manitska, and respect. And if this story moved you even a little, please consider subscribing to Final Act Revenge. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now, and maybe YouTube already knows it will mean something to you too.